Hello everyone, I am back with what was going to be another MCU ranking. However, I wanted this time to be different. Instead, this is going to be called The Guide to the MCU. I will be covering behind-the-scenes info on every MCU project from Phase 1 to Phase 5, as well as giving my own personal rankings and opinions, so sit back, grab a snack, and relax as we dive into The Guide to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Dance off, bro! I have the high ground!
39 days, 20 people, 1 survive! On the Tribe of Nerds.
Where else would we begin with the first chapter of this expansive franchise?
I am Iron Man.
So with Iron Man, Tom Cruise was in contention for Tony Stark, but Favreau and Feige wanted to fight for Robert Downey Jr., of course, and I believe Tom Cruise wanted more money, so they weren't going to go with Tom Cruise. And ultimately, apparently, a lot of Iron Man was improvised as they went along, like the script and everything. Even Jeff Bridges, who played Obadiah Stane in the movie, was like really frustrated because he usually wanted scripts like 3 months in advance, and so he was frustrated because they were getting stuff on the fly as they went, which is crazy that Iron Man worked as well as it did. But like this movie's great. So yeah, I mean, it's impossible, to um understate how important this was for this entire universe. It was so hugely important. Um, the post-credit scene, of course, the post-credit scenes were a thing before the MCU, but the MCU obviously like popularized them to where everything is doing it now. Um, but the post-credit scene was Kevin Feige said he was inspired by Ferris Bueller's Day Off and thought that was so fun that he wanted to incorporate these into the MCU. Um, Obviously Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury, teasing the Avengers initiative is one of the best post-credit scenes in the entire MCU still to this day.
Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger initiative.
Samuel Jackson was actually like Nick Fury in the comics was changed to be the likeness of Samuel L. Jackson in the Ultimates. So it is crazy, and he apparently had picked up a comic and saw that his likeness was in the comic book, and his agents had to call like Marvel Comics and be like, do we need to sue you or anything? But no, Samuel Jackson was like, no, I actually really like this, and they offered him movie deal to be Nick Fury at that point, but took a few years still, because that was in like 2005 when the Ultimates happened, early 2000s, and so then the MCU happened, then Iron Man happened. I'm gonna give Iron Man an A ranking.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
It's a great movie. I just think certain things even better. But this is an amazing start to the MCU, and Robert Downey Jr. is just perfect casting, and this wouldn't be the same if this movie had not kicked all this off. The Incredible Hulk, the second movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Often people that are new to this universe um, have said that they should skip it, or people have told them that they should skip it. But there's still some importance to this for sure. I mean, the most difficult part is that this is Edward Norton as Bruce Banner in the Hulk instead of Mark Ruffalo, which makes this very difficult moving forward, but it is still part of this universe. The reason why Edward Norton did not move forward is he was notoriously difficult to work with. Apparently he worked on rewrites and editing himself and got into fights with Kevin Feige and the higher ups. And Kevin Feige, a couple years later, a couple years before the Avengers, basically released a statement saying that just Edward Norton was not a team player, and basically they couldn't move forward with him because of him not um really being willing to be part of this ensemble as much as someone else that they wanted, which ended up being Mark Ruffalo, which we'll get into later. Um, so only William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross and Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky or the Abomination have returned so far. I mean, Bruce Banner as a character is obviously still continuing from here, just as Mark Ruffalo playing him, or with Mark Ruffalo playing him. And I mean, obviously, we're also getting Tim Blake Nelson as the leader, Samuel Stearns. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with this movie. It still has some importance. There's still like super soldier serum, and so they kind of put that in with the gamma radiation as to how Hulk got his origins and the Abomination, and so there's importance to this for sure. But there's a couple cool action scenes, like the Hulk versus the military, Hulk versus Abomination is fine. It's not my favorite. It's kind of the black sheep of the MCU. I'm not as big of a fan of it, and like obviously I would have preferred Mark Ruffalo to just be in since the beginning. I'm gonna give Incredible Hulk a D, and so it will go below Iron Man.
I wouldn't go in there for 20 minutes.
But it's still fine. Um, Obviously, you have the post credit of Tony Stark coming in to talk to Thunderbolt Ross.
I hear you have an unusual problem. You should talk. You should listen. What if I told you we were putting a team together? Who's we?
But that has even been confusing as to where or when it happened. So, but again, it's an okay movie. So, it's not the worst, but like it's not great for me either. Iron Man 2. So Iron Man 2 has famously had a troubled production. Jon Favreau wanted 3 years, but got rushed to 2 years because of the Avengers, and they had to set that up. Um, I will say, like, Robert Downey Jr. is still great in this movie. And because it's Robert Downey Jr., this did give us Black Widow, although she's a bit over sexualized in this film. Um, Coulson's fun. Nick Fury's fun, of course. Um, so I mean, it's not that there's still good moments in here. The villains are definitely where it falters as well. Sam Rockwell is Justin Hammer. I mean, there's entertainment for sure. He'd kind of choose the scenery a little bit like Jeff Bridges did, but not quite to that extent that made Obadiah Stane good, at least. I think Justin Hammer just isn't as great of a villain because he doesn't really do as much either. Um, so yeah, I mean, he has cringe dance moves. Um, but then Mickey Rourke as Whiplash, he wants his bird, and apparently Mickey Rourke requested that he get a bird, so it's like actually a request from the actor.
Hey,
Yes.
I want my bird.
A bird. You want a bird?
I want my bird.
And he wanted a gold grill for his teeth, and he did some weird stuff, and Jon Favreau and Kevin Feige basically like just told people to stay out of his way. And so yeah, another actor that was a little bit harder to work with, but it's fine because he was a villain for one movie and then got killed off at the end. This does give us the post-credit scene teasing Thor's hammer.
So, we found it.
That was exciting at the time for sure, but I'm gonna give Iron Man 2 a D just because of the mess of the production. It could have potentially gone higher because I do think there's stuff that's still lower. I mean, I think it's better than the Incredible Hulk for sure, because Robert Downey Jr. is so good. So I I still will put it above Incredible Hulk, but it gets a D for the mess of production and the mess of plot lines that did not help it, and the not so great villains.
I wouldn't go in there for 20 minutes.
Thor. So Thor, I feel like is one where I feel like my opinions, it gets a little bit of a boost, and since the last time, and I'm still not as big of a fan of it. I mean, there's still definitely a way better Thor movie. But this isn't the worst, compared to the other two that are gonna go below it. It did introduce a cosmic side of the MCU. Kenneth Branagh infused his Shakespearean um, experience into this. For those who don't know, he played Gilderoy Lockhart in the Harry Potter movies, or I believe just in Chamber of Secrets. Um, but yeah, I mean, he Kenneth Branagh is a great director, so that at least is a plus. And like it still gave us Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston together as Thor and Loki, and um I think Thor at least has an arc in this movie. I'm not as big of a fan of him and Jane Foster together in this movie. You know, him and Natalie Portman are like fine chemistry wise, but it's like it's also like they've only known each other for a day and they're just like madly in love with each other. Um, but this movie really did something to set up sort of a cosmic side to the MCU and kind of grounding it a little bit, which goes off the rails later, but like this is like they tried to like make it make sense within this first phase of the universe. Um and like I said, I mean Loki even gets an arc, and Anthony Hopkins is great as Odin for the limited screen time before he takes a nap for most of the movie. Um and yeah, I mean the negatives though that I have, I mean, there's a lot of Dutch angles. The camera's tilted at a weird angle for a lot of shots. Like I said, the Thor and Jane romance isn't very good, for me personally. Um, Uh, yeah, I mean, there's other things as well. I mean, the New Mexico stuff, like I said, it would have been cooler to be more with Asgard instead of doing like Earth stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's still fine. The post credit, of course, teases the Tesseract or the Space Stone, the first Infinity Stone, um, in the post credit, and that Loki will be coming back in the Avengers.
What is it?
Power, Doctor. If we can figure out how to tap it, maybe unlimited power.
Well, I guess that's worth a look. Well, I guess that's worth a look.
So I'm gonna give Thor a C. It was originally a D, but I think Thor is fine for things that it introduced into the MCU that are like mainstays now. And yeah, I mean it gave us also more Coulson. It gave us the first appearance of Hawkeye as well. So it's okay. It's a C. There's things that didn't work for sure, but there's things that also did work.
Not a great plan.
Captain America: First Avenger, the World War II period movie in the MCU. I know there's people that say start with this. I disagree. I think you need to start and go in release order. I think this is the way that it was intended by Kevin Feige and the filmmakers at Marvel Studios. Captain America: First Avenger is great though. I think the character of Steve Rogers, like the first 2/3 of this movie where it's like going into um why you should like Steve Rogers, what makes his character so appealing, and why he wants to be Captain America, why he's the right choice. I think that stuff is amazing. There's some uniqueness to the World War II aesthetic. Fun fact, so Chris Evans apparently turned down the role of Captain America twice before accepting. Um, and so that's crazy to think about, that um if Marvel didn't accept Chris Evans after he had rejected them. And interestingly enough, John Krasinski had also auditioned for the role, who from The Office, and who ended up being the version of Reed Richards that we saw in Doctor Strange 2. But the supporting cast is great. Tommy Lee Jones, Stanley Tucci, and Haley Atwell are all just great. As Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter is particularly great. Not as big of a fan of the war montage. The last third of the movie is not as great as the first 2/3. Hugo Weaving as Red Skull is all right. He's just a Nazi, so inevitably, like, or inherently, that's going to be a villain. And this gets everybody ready for the Avengers.
Trouble sleeping?
You here with a mission, sir?
I am.
Trying to get me back in the world?
Trying to save it.
So, but I give Captain America: First Avenger a B. It's still a good movie. There's flaws from the last third of it, but it is still a good movie with in the MCU with flaws. But I like it.
That feels weird, but I'll allow it.
Avengers the big team up written by Joss Whedon, who has since been outed as like not a great guy behind the scenes, but behind the scenes in this one, he very much was that way, and he pushed out the other writer, and who has like basically said that Joss Whedon is like horrible. And so this is also where we got Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, replacing Edward Norton. And interestingly enough, Mark Ruffalo was told basically um where before San Diego Comic-Con, where he was going to be announced, um or like they were going to announce the new replacement for Edward Norton, and Mark Ruffalo was told about getting the part of Bruce Banner that that night, if he woke up at 5 in the morning and looked out his window and saw like a um a car to take him to the airport to go to San Diego, that he got the part and he was heading there. But if he woke up and he saw nothing, then he should just go back to bed because he didn't get the part. Well, luckily he got the part. So, Battle of New York is just fantastic. I do think Avengers feels a little bit like a TV show. That's kind of just how Joss Whedon wrote stuff. But like everything still looks pretty good, and it's definitely the best of Phase 1 for me, seeing all these characters team up for the first time, and we had no idea um, what was going to happen at the time later on. But we also got the tease of Thanos and the great shawarma scene at the end.
To challenge them is to court death.
So, I give Avengers an A ranking, and it is number 1 at the moment.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
So, ultimately, if you're keeping track, number 1, Avengers. Number 2, Iron Man. Number 3, Captain America: First Avenger. Number 4, Thor. Number 5, Iron Man 2. And number 6, Incredible Hulk. So, we'll be back next time for Phase 2, which is the next 6 films in the MCU, and we'll talk about those next time on The Tribe of Nerds.